Here is 5 things you can do to fix up a kitchen on a budget when you're flipping a property or when you just want to make it way nicer for yourself. One, countertops. When renovating a kitchen, there's one surface which you always have contact with, which you see significantly, and that really plays a big role, and that is the countertops. Now, in a lot of houses, we try to make use of whatever there is, but you sometimes have a limitation. So when you're trying to do something vintage looking, like wooden cabinets, you can't keep the vintage looking countertop, which was pink in this house, and just keep both of them, even though that was granite and even though it was a good solution. So we swapped that wood out for a dark honed granite top, and that really elevated that moody look for that kitchen. In this kitchen, we kept the dark colors of the countertops because we planned to change the cabinets to a lighter color. So effectively keeping that contrast of a light cabinet with a dark top, or at least enhancing the kitchen by creating a mood or creating a certain styling throughout the entire process. And your countertops really can make a big difference in this way, especially if you do not want to spend a lot on the other things. You might want to put in a real statement piece. On a recent property, we used a product called Antarctica. I think it's from Pro Quartz. And that really just elevated that kitchen to a whole new level because it was really like a feature countertop, even though we just used the painted cabinets. 2, cabinetry. So the cabinetry of a kitchen is probably the most visible and therefore one of the most important finishes of a kitchen. Now ideally you do not just want to swap out everything. You can do that, but that costs a lot more money. So in this kitchen we reused a lot of the all of the cabinets. We reconfigured it a little bit, but effectively we used the same wood and just painted it. For this paint, we used the paint by Fired Earth, which you can find at Builders Warehouse. I can't remember the exact color. I think it's something like cream or something in the likes. But there's a bunch of colors that you can use. We gave these cabinets universal undercoat and then painted them with that cabinet paint. And I think it really elevated this kitchen from what was really dark, and dark not in a cool, moody way. It was like a red-brown wood that didn't really work well. We also used another technique where we used a reeded glass on these cabinets, just as like a bit of a feature and just to elevate the rest of it. So on these cabinets, paint is the way we went. Previously on kitchens, we've gone with refurbishing wood. And as soon as you refurbish wood, you have to make sure that you are moving towards something where you have a good vision in mind. Because it can really very quickly look tacky. And when you refurbish wood, you typically want to keep that classic wood, but then make sure that all your other elements are way more modern. So modern handles, modern tops, modern electricals, modern lights, all of those. So again, refinishing, it's kind of the easier way to go, except if a lot of them are really broken, then you really need to do some quality carpentry work, which is quite difficult as well. But that wood really has a classic feel that can go through a couple of decades and still be in style. 3, hardware. Probably the easiest thing you can do to fix up a kitchen is hardware. When I say hardware, I mean handles. Also includes stuff like hinges, so maybe replacing the hinges so the cabinets function way better. But just replacing the hardware. On these cabinets, for instance, we literally use the same holes that was in here and just replace them to a more style appropriate handle. In this kitchen, we went with what we call a brass or brushed brass. We use black a lot of times. You can even use silver, but ideally to make it a bit more modern, I like the brushed brass or a matte black type of finish. Other thing that forms part of the hardware is typically your plumbing fittings. So something like this mixer. I like to match them. A lot of people mix them. I don't like mixing materials as much, so to have a black handle with a gold tap and a silver light or whatever, I try to match those things to pull through an element of style entirely throughout the entire house. And then lastly, your hardware is, like I said, one of the cheaper fittings where you can typically do it very easily, but it makes a big impact. So make sure you find the right one that has the right shape as well as the right color to really work on the cabinets. We typically buy these either at something like a Galmar. Galmar has very good prices on these types of handles. A handle this size, I think it's a 128 millimeter handle. That's like 30 bucks or something. So it's a really cost-effective way to spruce up a kitchen. 4, tiles. One of my favorites are backsplash tiles. Here you can really bring through some character to the house. So when I talk about tiles to make your kitchen better, the biggest one is backsplash tiles. In this house, for instance, we use these little, I think they're like 100 by 20 or something like that, mosaic stacked handmade look tiles, or clay look tiles, or there's a bunch of ways people describe them. We used what we call a soldier stack on them, so that's literally stacked on top of one another. I like that because it elevates the whole feel of the kitchen. It makes it all feel elongated. And ideally, you want to be very sure that your tile color and even style in which you tile it fits with your cabinets, with your countertops, with your floor tiles, and all of them match up. So when I go shopping for tiles, I try to take a small piece of my countertop, take my cabinet, and then try and put something with it. And you can really, well, I can really feel it works or it doesn't work. And yeah, typically we can use, like I used here, a small mosaic style tile, or we can typically use large scale tiles. I like doing that a lot of times because it makes it way cheaper. Large scale, maybe 1.2 by 600 tiles are typically cheaper than these style mosaic tiles, and thus we can have a slab of concrete or a slab of marble type of look, you know. And typically we also like to then use a very thin tile spacer, something like a 1 millimeter tile spacer, which we can effectively create this look of one massive panel of concrete or marble or granite or whatever the look of that tile is. Again, whatever size it is, make sure it suits your countertop as well as your cabinetry, even your handles, because that plays a massive role in how the entire kitchen is perceived. And then one little detail which I didn't go into yet is floor tiles. So I typically like the entire house to flow into the kitchen. So normally my floor tiles is the same as my other living areas and so on, but it is also very important that this matches with your cabinets, countertops and backsplashes. 5, lighting. In a kitchen, lights make a massive difference. 1, for physical visibility. So make sure in areas like your laundry and scullery and those types of places, you have sufficient light to be able to cook and wash and do all the things that you practically need to do without just having atmosphere. But when it does then come to atmosphere, make sure that your one light, which is your typical feature light above a peninsula in this case, or an island, really adds to the kitchen. So like I said earlier, I like it if all these finishes fit one another. With lights, it's quite difficult to determine, but you typically don't want a super modern light in a very classic kitchen. And other way around as well. You don't want a super classic curly chandelier in a super modern kitchen. So I like it if the trim, so in this case brass, or in the other house black, suits one another and goes all the way through. So handles, lights, mixers, all of them matching up to one another and being the same. We also like to do a little atmosphere style light. So maybe under a shelf there could be a little light, or like this in a bulkhead above all the cupboards. That's also a nice lighting feature to just pull through. And then I like to always give a bit of a bonus tip, and here it is. This is if you have a bit more budget, opening up the space. In South Africa, and I think all around the world, people like to live and entertain around a kitchen, stove, where you cook, where you chop, where you make food. So opening it up to a dining area or to the rest of the other living areas in your house makes a very decent difference. So we try to always open it up with a counter or an island, take away some walls or that type of thing. Only thing to consider here, well, there's a few things, but very important is that the wall dividing your kitchen is non-structural, so it doesn't keep up your roof. And then secondly, what are you breaking while doing this? So when you break away a wall, you typically have to fix a ceiling and a floor. So don't try to keep your floor tiles and think you're going to break up a wall, because there's probably going to be a space between this room's tiles and that room's tiles. And then, like I said, ceilings, you'll have to typically patch them and make them all feel as one again at that stage. So opening up a space, massive plus if you can do that. It will probably have a bit more costs, and there's not a very budget way of improving making a kitchen more modern, but it really does make a space way better. Like always, if you really like this video, please share it with somebody you think might find value in it, and I would really love if you could subscribe to this video if you are not subscribed. You can like it and all of those other stuff as well, but the most important, share it with somebody who'd find value in it. Thanks for watching.